Hey, Advanced Multimedia and Advanced Game Design. This is a video about making tiles for your game in Flowlab. So I'm going to rename this tile demo. And I'm not going to get too fancy. You guys are probably going to design better stuff than I will, but you know, give you a starting point to think about some stuff. So I'm going to start off by making a tile for the floor. And if I create and edit sprite, I'm going to call this floor or floor 1 or something. Floor 1. And there's some specific things about designing this. Oops, let me go edit that. Okay, so editing the sprite. The first thing I can do actually is just delete everything. Okay, and if you want to use a specific color to start with, you can just kind of dump that in there here. So I'm going to go to pick a color gray. What I'm thinking about is like a steel rail, like a girder that you might build a building with. So I'm going to click OK, and I'm going to dump that color in there. So that's my starting shade. And I do want to make sure I can still see my grid. So I want to be able to see the grid still. And I can't. What happened to my grid? So anyways, I'm going to get this color and I'm going to dim it down just a little bit so it's make it a little bit brighter. Something about the top of my rail being something that's going to catch color. So let me bring this down so you can see the size of my rail like this. So I'm just drawing with this. And at the bottom of this rail, I'm going to use a darker color. So I might want to think about, before I get too busy with that, let's add the top of the rail. So not a bad idea if I don't draw the whole thing. So if I go look at it and see, okay, is that the proportions I want? And I'm good with that so far. So I'm going to use this. So before you draw the whole thing, it's always a good idea to check. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4. It's a few layers up. So if I then take, let's keep drawing that line, I guess. And it may be a bit brighter than I want, so I'm going to actually just tone that down a smidge. Like this, I think. And I'll dump that color in there. So I'm just replacing a little bit. I feel like maybe I should have left it the way it was. I don't know. So now I'm going to take a darker shade, darker than this, and make the shadow side. So the shadow side will be down here. And I'm just sort of designing pixel by pixel. Oops, that was not what I wanted at all. Okay, let's get this color again. Turned out I had the paint bucket selected. Okay, so select this color. We're going to go darker. And use the paintbrush, the pencil, whatever that is. So now I've got this shade here. And I think it's about 1, 2, 3, 4 between. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then this one. So that's the bottom of the rail. And I probably want to go one darker for the underneath this because it's a sort of a I-beam shaped is what I'm imagining. So I'm trying to get this sort of put together that way. And it would be easy to just sort of look at it like that and go, okay, this is a shape, but I want to create some gradation in there. So it's looking okay. And let me open it up again. So I'm going to use a similar shade, but not quite as dark right there. So that's going to be a little ways back. And I'm just kind of picking my colors. And notice that it adds up your colors down here. So you can actually pick and grab those to work with. So as you build your own palette, it's adding to your palette somewhere down here. So there's this. I'm going to start bringing down my shades a bit more here. So I'm going to go to this color here, I think. And I'm going to just draw something sort of uneven like this. And then dump that color in there. So I just want to build sort of a gradient. I'm going to go look again. So it's always a good idea to look. And I feel like that was probably a bit dark. So I'm going to open that again. And this is the sort of process of experimenting and trying stuff out. Alright, so this is the sort of easy stuff. It's just basic tiles. And getting a view for what it might look like. And checking it out and trying again and again and again. And then I can add some sparkles to it or some speckles to build up that a bit more. So I can now take this, of course, and clone it. And now I have this, and this could be my floor, my platforms, and this stuff, and what have you. So there's this. Now what I want to do is build a wall. And my wall, I guess I should change my color. So I'm thinking about, since it's a rail, I could have a game where somebody's building a building. So done cloning. And change the background here. So if they're building a building, I'm going to use a blue sky background. Something like this. I'm going to use desaturated. And this is the background color. And okay, so now if they're building a building, I can have, now I need to have a rail going upwards. So here's a rail color going upwards. I'm going to use a similar strategy, similar colors, I guess. So here's some of those shades, and just dump it in there, and you can just dump the whole thing in there. And then as the edges curl one way or the other, you know, sort of rounded edges on the beam, I can add some shades in there like that. So let's see, let's go with a little bit lighter or darker. Get the pencil. I gotta click OK before I can draw. So I got this. And it's okay to get off a little bit of your line because it just creates some randomness. Although it does kind of make it tough to keep the line, especially at this pixel size. Okay, so now I have a rail that looks like this, and I can clone it. Okay, now what I'm going to talk about next is designing other objects. So if I want to make, for example, my player piece here, and I create, and I say edit, I'm going to delete everything, or just start with something. So you can start with browsing something and go, okay, I want something like one of these main player characters. So if I choose pixel characters, then I can use some of this design to start with. So if I open this up, or this one, and let's say I want to have this character wearing a hard hat, as they might on a job site or a construction site, then I'm just going to start picking these colors and adjusting the shades of things. Now, you don't have to draw every pixel. You can actually use a paint bucket for that. So what I'm going to do is, let's see, I'm thinking white hard hat, yellow hard hat. I'm going to go with yellow. Yellow because it may be a little bit more dominant, something like this. So I'm going to draw the hard hat. Like this, and I may have to delete some pixels, and that's okay. So I'm going to go ahead and just get this, just to fill the color in. Now, at this pixel level, I personally have a really hard time seeing where a round might be. So I'm going to go ahead and use the eraser tool to sort of block that out. Now, at this point, I'm having to get too small in my pixels. I can actually increase the size of the grid too much. And that way it's a little bit less work when I'm drawing. So something like this, maybe. Trying to get a round shape out of it. So let me just add one more shade to the top. And then if I continue making the size of my grid smaller, then I can sort of work those pieces in a little bit at a time. Okay, something like that. Now, not real great, frankly. Let me add another row here. And to make that appear a little bit more depthy, I'm going to bring that shade down a little bit, or darker. And so now it's got the appearance or the illusion of depth to it. So I can add that in here. Put a little curvature on the top of the hat. And there's a bunch of stuff you could do there. So if we say, okay, now my character has a hard hat on. It doesn't look too bad. The challenge is drawing that on each of the pieces. And there's ways to sort of decide which one to repeat or move around. But that's a good start for designing pieces. Other stuff that you can design, I want to show you how to make a slope today. So if I want to build a slope into this, I'm going to start by clicking here. And I like to name my slopes left or right, so I'm going to call this one R1, and what that means is it's headed right, it's the first one. So if I delete everything, now here's the strategy with this. A slope we need to make in sets of 4, and here's why. We have a 4, essentially 4 is the smallest division. It's the least common denominator for our pixel grid. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to choose a color for my, let's say it's dirt or something. So here's my dirt color, and I'm going to start here, and then I'm going to reduce the size of my pixel view and draw this to here, And eventually I need to reduce a lot more. So got this. And it's kind of important to pay attention to how many pixels you're drawing. Like sets of 4 is usually a good idea. 1, 2, 3, 4. Like this. And I feel like I'm missing something somewhere here. Like maybe that top one shouldn't be that tall, or this one should be like this. So just building it up a little bit at a time. So eventually you have what should be a slope. So if I say OK, now I've got one slope. And the next slope has to match up with that one. So for the same reason, I'm going to call this one R2. And here it is the day after May the 4th, and I'm drawing R2. So that's funny. So let's edit this, edit the sprite. And similar situation. We're going to start with big pixels. We're going to get the color in here. And I'm just going to draw all the way across the bottom. So this is where we're trying to get to. That's the next level down. And now I'm going to go down the next pixel size, and I'm going to draw to here. And now down in pixel size. And it was too far. So I can't remember where that is. So I have to look once in a while. Okay, so there's this. So building with this. And I usually do 4 pixels at a time. And occasionally I have to go back and check and see where I am, because this grid is the top part that I want to deal with. So I'm going to go back down. So I need 1 more pixel height on that piece. There we go. And that's kind of got to build its way over. So I'm going to go with 4 here, and 2 here, and 4 here, 4 here. So I'm adding them in sets of 4 usually. There's 4. And that's probably going to work without getting too busy with it. So now I have these. Now the thing you have to do with these is, you can see my first one didn't come out quite exactly right. But if I open this, it's really important. Oops, I cloned it. What's really important to do with these is to change the physics so that the collision shape is a polygon. And then it works great. So I'm going to take this one here also. And you have to have these in sets of 4 because they have to go up a full tile. So edit this and change the pixel collision to this. So if I move my player onto that thing, you're going to see him walk up the thing. So although I don't have him set up to walk just yet. So if I run this, let me open this guy up to test this with and edit behaviors. I'm just going to add a behavior bundle for run and jump, and I'm not going to worry about animating right now, just testing the movement. So if I run this, we're going to see that he's not doing anything. We also need to add gravity to him and make him movable. So if I go to physics for this guy, movable, gravity, good, and back to properties and OK, and play the game. Now as he goes forward and backwards, oops, and you can see him going across those pixels. It's actually pretty smooth, and it's just about how well you want to design those pieces and spend time building those up. That's about it for today. Try to add this to your game level somehow, and we're also going to learn a little bit more about some patterns to use in platform designs. We'll see you soon.